Hello, good afternoon. My name is Josh Rudy, and the name of my project is Medicine, an Overview. So my theme verse is Luke 10:34. He went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. This verse stood out to me because in the parable of the Good Samaritan, a Jewish priest saw a wounded man by the road, beaten almost half to death. But instead of helping him, he went out of his way to avoid the man. Then the Levite, a man considered holy as well, passed by the beaten man. The only one who helped the man was the Samaritan, whom the Jews despised. It was the Samaritan that was a good neighbor who showed the man mercy. And in Luke 10:37, Jesus said to him, "You go and do likewise." So why medicine? I wanted to make a project that would give people information that could be used in practical situations to help others. I was also passionate about anesthesia and addiction medicine, specifically because my friend Wes overdosed on heroin about 4 or 5 years ago. So my project was focused on several different branches of medicine, and it was a heavily research-oriented project. Areas of medicine that I researched included palliative care, emergency medicine, healthcare, addiction medicine, and much more. Throughout the project, I integrated skills that I learned into the curriculum of students and staff at Grace Prep. These were the bubbles that were assigned to me in May of last year by Mr. Gresh. My goals included a National Youth Leadership Forum medical internship with a 3-page essay, research of 2 books, 7 documentaries, 3 videos, 20 scholarly articles, and 6 interviews. A research portfolio of anesthesia and addiction with an additional 20 scholarly articles. 2 essays about my personal development through reflections on medicine and Christianity. EMT training with a question mark written next to it. Curriculum integration consisting of my 911 medical G-term and an additional faculty training session. And finally, my egg bubble, a Make American Healthcare Great Again thesis paper. So for my National Youth Leadership Forum medical internship essay, I went to the University of Maryland from June 24th to July 2nd of 2018. It was comprised of 3 main dynamics: academy, lab, and arena. We did tons of research during the academy, and we often stayed up until late at night. We practiced hands-on simulations through the lab, such as phlebotomies, suturing, triaging, and physical examinations. And finally, we presented our knowledge through demonstrations to the entire forum during the arena dynamic. We also toured the George Washington University in Washington, D.C., and over the internship, the primary focus was familiarizing scholars with the skills which are most often utilized by medical professionals, i.e., medical ethics, first aid, triaging, and other core skills. Finally, I completed a 4-page essay about the internship. On the left, you can see me practicing phlebotomy training, and on the right, I am with my group. Here's a picture of the medical internship forum at the George Washington University. And as you can see, I am directly left of the statue in the back. And here is the certificate from my medical internship, which can be found now in front of the panel. So for the research portion of my project, I read 2 books: On Becoming a Doctor by Tanya Heller, which is a summary on medical school, residency, and dozens of medical professions. I also had the privilege of meeting Dr. Tanya Heller at my medical internship. And I also read Better, A Surgeon's Notes on Performance by Atul Gawande, which documents several personal challenges faced by doctors, such as medical ethics, euthanasia, and performance rates. The documentaries I watched were Extremis, which is focused on palliative care, The Bleeding Edge, which summarizes medical technology corporations, Heroin, which goes into detail about the opioid epidemic in America, 24/7, 365, The Evolution of Emergency Medicine, which describes the history of emergency medicine, Code Black, which is about the Los Angeles County Hospital's emergency room, Endgame, which is also about palliative care, and Sicko, a documentary comparing the healthcare of America to other countries. I was assigned 3 videos to watch, and the TED Talks that I watched were What Americans Agree on When It Comes to Health by Rebecca Oni, Why the Hospital of the Future Will Be Your Own Home by Niels van Niemen, and What Doctors Don't Know About the Drugs They Prescribe by Ben Goldacre. For my professional contacts, I conducted interviews with Dr. Stacy Kleppeis, a doctor in the field of dermatology, Dr. Robert Ohoff, an attending emergency room physician, Mr. Ed Gill, a medical technician, Dr. Jason Brooks, a doctor of pathology and also an EMT, a retired EMT chief, Mr. Thomas Haupt, a first responder for Milheim Fire Company, and Mrs. Hope Eisenberg, a registered nurse at Geisinger Scenery Park. And I was unable to acquire a picture of Mrs. Hope Eisenberg, so I instead filled it with a picture of her work at Geisinger Scenery Park. Here are the names of the 20 articles that I completed for my research. And here are the 20 articles that I completed for my research on portfolio of anesthesia and addiction. One article that stood out to me was Individual Risk Factors for Adolescent Substance Use, because it explained different things that have empirical evidence for contributing to substance use and addiction in young adults. Another article that stood out to me was General Anesthesia, Sleep, and Coma, because it went into great detail about the relationship between the state which the body resides while under each of these conditions and how they all interconnect. For my curriculum integration, I organized a hemorrhage care and tourniquet application training session on December 17th of 2018. It was hosted by Dr. Betsy Egger, and those who participated included Mr. Robbie Gresh, Mr. Jones, Mr. Jared Seckler, Dr. Robert Ohoff, and myself. On January 2nd to January 4th, I hosted a medical G-term at Grace Prep. And here's the itinerary. On January 2nd, students participated in a medical ethics discussion, an educational video on CPR, and a disaster triaging simulation. On the 3rd, the class took a trip to Penn Highlands Clearfield Hospital Simulation Center. While on the trip, students received CPR training, AED training, and tourniquet application practice. On January 4th, both Dr. Call and Dr. Ohoff taught on suturing, and the students completed a simulation with hog flesh. They were also prompted to respond to Bible verses referencing medicine as well as healthcare. To complete the G-term, students completed a basic first aid quiz. One of the questions included the ratio between breath and chest compressions. Co-teachers for the G-term included Mrs. Leah Call, Dr. Robert Call, and Dr. Robert Ohoff. Here's the picture of a class during a slideshow presentation. The next bubble was originally proposed as a goal to acquire EMT training. During the proposal in May, Mr. Gresh wrote a question mark next to the bubble. The goal was eventually changed to possible volunteer service because the EMT training cost several $1,000s. I applied to Center Volunteers in Medicine, and the application was ignored. It was my fault for not pursuing the application further. So I looked into receiving first responder training at the Miles Township Fire Company. However, the Miles Township Fire Company trains their firefighters and first responders through the initial EMT training course. It was my fault for not completing this bubble in time, and therefore I plan to receive CPR and AED training by the end of April. For my personal development bubble, I read, reviewed, and responded to 2 different articles. These articles were focused on the relations between spirituality and health and medicine that can be found in Scripture. An additional product of this project is the donation of 12 cat tourniquets to the Grace Prep Medical Supplies. These were graciously donated to Grace Prep by my mentor, Dr. Ohoff, and they can also be found in front of the panel now. My egg bubble, Make American Healthcare Great Again, was inspired by Dr. Ehlhoff discussing healthcare ideals, and it was fueled by my discovered interest in the political aspects of medicine. Therefore, my egg is a 4-page essay addressing the fundamentals of American healthcare, its wandering, and possible corrective practices. So I was happy whenever Dr. Ehlhoff agreed to be my mentor because I knew that he is, which I would not have had without him. My learning stretch included leaving my comfort zone because the 9-day medical internship in Washington, D.C., while extremely fun and very enlightening, was also very hot. And there were hundreds of strangers on a populated campus, and in front of that many students, I came out as an introvert. I also struggled with time management at points throughout the project because of the amount of research which had to be divided throughout the process. I was also applying to college throughout the process as well. However, my most anxiety-inducing stretch was the EMT training bubble because I ultimately failed to complete it in time. Here's a list of my project expenses. My medical internship, which cost $3,800. On Becoming a Doctor, my first book by Tanya Heller, which was $21.99. Better, A Surgeon's Notes on Performance, my second book, which was $17. And finally, printing my portfolio at Staples, which cost $108. The total expenses were over $3,946.99 after taxes. Ultimately, I hope this project inspires people to seek out a passion for healing others and to challenge them to help those in need, like the Good Samaritan. In conclusion, I believe I faced this project head-on and to the best of my ability. Although I struggled with time management throughout the project, I spent hundreds of hours and an immeasurable amount of effort to complete each required goal. I would like to personally thank Dr. Ehlhoff for agreeing to be my abundantly helpful mentor, for helping co-teach my G-term, and for allowing me to interview him. Dr. Call for providing several additional resources, co-teaching my G-term, and helping me organize a trip to the Penn Highlands Clearfield Simulation Center. Mr. Seckler for meeting with me as my advisor and for motivating me whenever I needed it. Mrs. Call for also helping co-teach my G-term. Mrs. Moyer and Mr. Gresh for giving me this challenge. Mr. Jones and Mr. Robbie Gresh for also attending the Grace Prep faculty training session. Dr. Betsy Egger for training the faculty and myself in hemorrhage care and tourniquet application, and also for allowing me to go to a Stop the Bleed Medical Society meeting in Bellefonte for further training. Dr. Stacy Kleppeis, Dr. Jason Brooks, Mr. Ed Gill, Mr. Thomas Haupt, and Mrs. Hope Eisenberg for also allowing me to interview them. Mrs. Halshalter for her painstaking efforts in trying to help me print my portfolio. The senior class for all of their help. The rest of the Grace Prep staff and students. My amazing family. And everyone else who supported me along the journey. Thank you.
Hey, Josh, it is on. Well done. I'm allowed to say that, right? But I really mean it. I don't know. I'm just really proud of you. So I just have to say that. I'm really sorry about your friend, too. I can see where you got a lot of your inspiration for this, which is going to carry you a long way. Are you still planning to go to medical school?
Yes, ma'am.
Become a doctor? I'm really glad to see that. I think that even just doing this project, if that didn't dissuade you any, all the things that you read and experienced, then I think you're on your way. I have a couple questions to ask you about. As I was reading about your training that you went to, I was really impressed that you did that last summer. Pretty enlightening for you. You had one thing that you mentioned about service, that they talked about it, medicine as a service and being a servant. And tell me a little bit more about your comment about that. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like when you were there, that it didn't seem like the students got that part, or I don't know. I read that many of this, whatever they were, students that were there didn't seem to connect with the idea of medicine as a service art, you know.
Yeah, some of the students there, they were enthusiastic about the internship as much as I was. However, I feel as though some of them were there for different reasons, and there were certain colleges that accepted credits for completion of the National Youth Leadership Forum Medical Internship. And I feel like that was some of the motivating factors for some of the other students being there, rather than my intention of going for acquiring the knowledge that I could use to help other people.
Yeah. Really insightful for you to see that, that part of being a really good physician is never losing that humanity part of it, you know, and that you're there to serve. I hope you'll do that. The other thing that I just wanted to mention was when you did the G term, and you came to me and Dr. Call and just asked if we would help, or if I would help. And just as we saw your plan, which was a good plan, but we also saw a way to make it better. That when we approached you about that, you were so accepting of that, and I really appreciated that. And do you feel like it made your project, your days even better?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and it did. And so that would be the encouragement I would give you as you go along and become a doctor. My husband's a good doctor. I'm just going to say that. He's a good doctor, and he's really a great physician. And one of the great things about him, and that makes a great physician, is knowing when somebody else knows more. And that you can always learn more, and you can always receive from them. And so knowing when to consult someone else, knowing when to do that. And that will really go a long way for you. And I hope you'll just take that little lesson from G-Term with you as you go forward. Don't become arrogant in your knowledge. Always remember that there's probably more for you to learn. You're going to do well.
Thank you.
All right, really, really good job, Josh. I liked how you started out at the beginning with the theme verse and brought in the faith aspect to the project too. That was really nice to see. Really, this was a really extensive project, especially when you look at all the research that you did. That was a lot of research, a lot of reading, and a lot of writing. And there was also it wasn't just a research project. There were things that you also did, like the internship and the G-term and, big things. So this actually was a very extensive project. So I really want to commend you on completing it all. In fact, you said that you struggled with time management, but really, I saw you working throughout this year. You really worked well throughout the year. I didn't see that you were struggling a lot with time management. There was the EMT training, but that always was a thing that we weren't sure whether you would be able to do it or not. And I know that was a little confusing, but I think you worked really steadily all throughout the year. I didn't see you letting up, and you weren't always in senior legacy because you were taking Latin. So you balanced a lot of things, you know, so you really did a good job with time management, I think. Was all of that reading that you did, was it interesting to you, or was it challenging to read all of those scientific articles?
A lot of the scholarly articles did prove challenging.
Okay.
They were all very valuable to learn in reflection. However, going through it at the time, it definitely did not appear so.
Okay. And now what is your motivation for studying medicine? Because I've heard you talk a little bit about that just today during the project, but really didn't talk about that before too much, and so I just wanted to hear a little bit more about that.
I believe that medicine is the most practical and influential way in which people can help other people. Saving someone's life is it's a very dramatic thing. As compared to other areas of work, I believe that medicine really speaks to people's hearts more than other professions.
Okay. I mean, I thought that was really interesting because it came up a few times in the presentation today and in your portfolio that you really want to help people with your job. You know, I think that's really great, and it's kind of different, not something you would talk about all the time, like, hey, I really want to help people. But it's great to see that side of you. What did you gain from going to that medical internship? What was something you learned from that experience?
I gained lots of hands-on practice that I would not have been exposed to otherwise, such as the phlebotomy training, the triage practice, and other things like that. We were given actual tools by professionals at the University of Maryland for things like conducting physical examinations. We also practiced on lifelike simulation dummies and things like that, which responded very well. I think I gained a lot of experience overall, and it also helped me find my passion in medicine.
Okay, yeah, because I think like Mrs. Call said, a lot of people would go to something like that and say, you know what, I don't really want to do phlebotomy kind of things after all, you know, but since you liked it, that's really good. So good job.
Thank you.
Josh Rudy, you look good.
Thank you.
You shaved.
Yes.
You look sharp. You are a really good presenter. Like I've said that a couple times, but you're a really good presenter. You're
Thank
very
you.
well composed, good pace. And I expected that of you because I know you. Also, I liked your big pictures. I commented to Bob. I'm like, nice. I like nice big pictures, and you really did that. I thought it was great. I think Ernie's got nothing to complain about. Walking those, you could easily see what was going on there. So Ernie's happy. But they really, seriously though, they were really, even the books, like it was good. G-term. I was nervous about that going in, right?
Yes.
I got on you about that. Told you needed to come up with a plan, a good plan, and you did. And you pulled it off. You know, I echo what Mrs. Call said, is that you took advice, you listened to me, you listened to others, and I thought that was one of the best G-terms we've ever had.
Thank you.
You really did a good job of organizing people around you, bringing in Dr. Hoff, Dr. Call, Leah, it was really well done. And so I gave you a really hard time about that for a long time, but you pulled it off and you did well. I was proud of you for that. I would like you to explain what a cat tourniquet is, because if I'm sitting here and I don't know, but I do know, yeah, because I'm like, are we taking care of cats here? What about the dogs? You know, Willow, it seems biased to me.
So a cat tourniquet is a combat application tourniquet. So if you were to have a hemorrhage wound on one of your extremities, such as your arm or your leg, you would take one of these. Bob, may I see your arm? Thank you. Just a demonstration. So you would take the tourniquet.
I'm glad we had these close by for senior projects.
Yes.
You never know when a kid's gonna.
Very easy to open up. And you were to tighten it around the band. Loosen the time strap. Tighten the tourniquet. Wrap the rest of the band around. Tuck it under the time strap. Seal it, and then write the time on it. And that will stop the bleeding, which should be below the extremity, below the point of the tourniquet on the extremity.
So the point is that you can get it really tight.
Yes, sir.
You know, I participated in the, what did I participate in? Robbie and I, what was that?
The hemorrhage care and tourniquet application practice
And that was-
with Dr. Betsy Egler.
That was very interesting to me. Like, I really enjoyed that. I actually went out and bought some of these tourniquets. I'm like, I need to take that in my hunting bag, I need to take that in the car. Like, it was very interesting to me, and I love that we have a kid here now because you never know when something can happen, so that was good. Time management. I disagree a little bit with Mrs. Moyer. I think you're a hard worker. I've
Thank
said
you.
that all along. I think there was times you worked hard. I think there's times you didn't, and I think I gave you a few kicks in the butt, and you responded. I want to talk about the $108 binder. We let people print those here. That was a stressful time for you, right?
Yes.
I remember that. So I think that in time management, if that had been done a little sooner, that could have been a little less stressful. Because it was like the last day, and our printer didn't work, and then your mom's printer did. I was actually laughing with Nate Gray because it's the first time I really saw you stressed out. And I said, you look stressed. And you went off on me about, stressed. I thought you were going to pop a vessel. And I turned away and walked away with Nate. I'm like, oh, my goodness. But I think that's a good lesson. Tell me what you learned about time management.
Prioritization is a very wonderful tool. Determining what is most important to you, putting it at the top of your list and not letting anything distract that, that's key to time management, I believe. I don't think that I would have been able to do this project if I did not realize the importance of time management and dividing up what I needed to do so that I could get it done.
Now, you did that, though, in the end. Like,
Yeah.
I was working with, and I called your mom once or twice and said, hey, but you did that. So my question is, did you learn that? Can you, moving forward, do you need that swift kick in the butt from someone else, or can you go ahead and move forward with that on your own?
I believe I can go forward.
What did you learn about yourself through this project?
I'm much more passionate about medicine than I thought. I had initially wanted to be an anesthesiologist. However, I learned, even from my medical internship, that I should not want to pick a specific specialty in medicine until I have all of the practice and all of the knowledge that I would need until I'm able to do that and declare a major.
Do you feel like your project changed you in any way?
It made me much better at communication.
Good. Well, I thought you did a great job.
Thank you.
You asked me your advisor. I told you to be happy to because I know you're a hard worker. I've seen you for 4 years sit here in Sound Study Hall and work hard at your academics and take that seriously. And so, and you worked hard on this. Like, your timeline is solid. There's a few times you need to get motivated, but you responded, and you always have responded to challenge. And I respect that about you. I love your loyalty. I love your loyalty to your family and things you believe. And I think you're going to do great things. You just keep those priorities in line, and you're going to do great things. I'm proud of you, Josh.
Thank you.
All right, Josh. Good job. Good job. You're a man of few words.
Thank you.
No one's ever told me that, but you are a man of few words. So I like the way you process things, and your words are powerful because you're thinking through them. So interesting to me. What contributes to youth substance abuse? You said that was an interesting article. I'm interested in what. Do you remember what that said? You don't need to. It's a kind of a pop question, but do you remember what it said?
The article listed factors such as relationship with family, and one of the examples would be that a lesser or a worse relationship with family led to an increased amount of substance abuse in young adults.
Okay. How did the medical G term work? How much of that did you do? How much of that did you get help with?
So I had a proposal for the G term in, I believe, December. And I proposed it to Jared, and I told him that I was basically ready to run the G term on my own with no co-teachers. And Jared informed me that I would need different co-teachers for the G term so that it would all run smoothly. And once I contacted the Call family and my mentor, Dr. Elhoff, they both provided, all three of them provided additional activities and resources to the project, and it made the G term much, much greater than it would have been without them.
What does it mean that you came out as an introvert?
My true colors were revealed in front of that many people, and I turned my focuses inwards to learning what I was gaining from the experience rather than what I could offer.
What does that mean? Tell me more about that.
So, throughout the internship, being exposed to all of that knowledge and life on a campus for 9 days, it was kind of surprising and not really what I had expected, just from my original picturing of the internship in my head. However, I don't know, it was just there was something about it that made me look inwards, and I think it was discovering a further passion for medicine than I had initially thought.
So you went there by yourself?
Yes, sir. I was driven down by my mother.
So you're just thrown into that pool of how many kids? Was there 500
Well
or
over
1,000?
500.
Okay. So you just walked in there by yourself, and that's maybe a little bit disorienting, is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Did you have a roommate?
Yes.
Okay. How was that?
He was a nice guy. I didn't make a lifelong relationship with him, as he was from Virginia, but
Right.
he was a very nice
You
individual.
know those Virginians. You don't want to get too close to them. So, I thought you did an excellent job talking about the EMT bubble. You know, I think that was your idea. I think that's why I put a question mark. We knew there was some variables there that might not work out.
Yes.
And you stayed up with me on the need for changing that, and I think you handled that well in your presentation. And you'll be volunteering where to try to finish that?
I was planning on receiving my CPR and AED certification to satisfy
What's
that bubble.
AED? What is AED?
It's a defibrillator. So whenever someone has a heart attack and the doctor grabs the paddles and they put them on the chest and they say clear and shock the patient, that's the defibrillator.
Okay. You can practice on Jared if you need to, just to get back at him a little bit if you need to put the paddles on somebody. Your presentation was a little too short. Did you know that was going to happen?
I knew it was going to be a few minutes short, but I ran through it faster than I expected.
What would you do to add things to that? I mean, you had a big thank you, you had a budget, there was a little bit of filler there. What do you think? How do you think you could have added something? Well, I can tell you how you could have added something. You had one of the things the students wouldn't see is that there must be 150 pages of writing in here. And it's almost all typewritten pages that you wrote. I think you probably could have gone over a few of those things in a bit more detail to show us, because it was very hard for us to see what was actually in here. And I think it underrepresented your project a little bit, the presentation, because there's a lot in here that you could have talked through. You definitely had enough to talk about to fill up the 20 minutes, but I thought the presentation was great. You're a great presenter. And I thought that I've heard great things about the G term. And I think it was a really excellent project. I love that you became more passionate about medicine, that you learned sort of a better path to go into that. What's the path to that now that we're there? What's the next step?
So I just got accepted into Eberly College of Science at Penn State University Park. So I will be starting classes there in the summer, and after 2 years, I will be declaring my major, and after that, I will hopefully be applying to medical school.
What is Eberly? What is it technical the first 2 years, or all science, or how does that work?
It's classes the first 2 years, and then I believe the second years in Eberly, it's more training you for pre-med.
Okay. Well, Josh, you did a great job. I'm
Thank
proud
you.
of you. That was a great project. You pulled your way through it, did a lot of work, so good job.
Thank you.
Mrs. Rudy, we have we let the parents say something about their kids' hard work.
Well, Joshua, you are sometimes a very hard person to read and get to know. As Mr. Gresh said, you are a man of very few words. But if you really know Josh, you do know that he has a huge, huge heart. He has a wonderful work ethic, and I think this proved it. You got a little off the rails a couple times, but thanks to Jared, you got back on. And thanks to your own determination, too. So we're very proud of you, and you are going to go and do great things.
Thanks, Mom.
A lot of students off a lot of rails all the time in senior projects, but you got back on them. All right. Thanks, Josh. You did a great job.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.